Thank you very much for having me. It's wonderful to be back in Pennsylvania. The roll call to me was terrifically heartening today. I've had a chance to work in Lancaster and the surrounding communities lately. I've been in other parts of the state in past years, and I've never seen such a meeting of energy and importance. I believe that these are the kinds of local democracy, movements in local democracy that the framers dreamed of and that changed the country. And I'm grateful that you're here and that are working to make your communities better. There's no place I'd rather be than with you working on these issues. So thank you for coming, and I hope we can work together.
Good afternoon. It's my great honor to be here today, and I bring you greetings from Deputy Secretary Ron Sims, who asked me to come here today and underscore this administration's commitment to the enterprise you're engaged in. The work that you are doing in Pennsylvania, showing the energy and enthusiasm we'd like to bring to states all throughout America.
We are here today because we all care about Pennsylvania. But I'm going to tell you, Allentown is the third largest city in the state of Pennsylvania. We face challenges like every other large urban area across the Commonwealth. And folks, our cities face some significant challenges. Whether we look at our urban cores throughout the state, whether they're large or small, whether it's Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Allentown, Pottsville, Lancaster, Erie, throughout the state, we are facing some very, very difficult challenges going forward.
I was lucky to grow up in Yeadon Borough in Delaware County. When I was growing up there, Yeadon was a lovely, beautiful town. It had a small, upper middle-class African-American community. Our parents' average educational level was 2 years post-undergraduate school. So naturally, more African-American families began to flock to Yeadon, seeking a better life and better schools for their children. But unbeknownst to us, someone moved the cheese. While African Americans were moving in and they thought moving up, many whites were moving out to new frontiers that were partly subsidized with our tax dollars.
When I look at my community now, I see people who have moved out of Drexel Hill, out of Upper Darby, into the further suburbs because the taxes are so high, because they perceive the school as what they call an urban school district, which is often a code word. We have the same problems as many of these cities have. We have a high concentration of low-income housing and segregation. We have struggling schools. We have older infrastructure. We have a high tax burden. I talk to young families in our church who grew up in our church, and I say, well, don't you want to buy a house in Drexel Hill? They look at me like I'm crazy. Why would I buy a house in the community where I grew up if I could get a house for the same amount of money, a bigger house, pay fewer taxes, have more green space, et cetera, et cetera?
It's like you're putting the older people, the people that need services, on an iceberg that's melting. And every year, as problems intensify, as the sewers get older, as the streets get older, as the people get older, every year that municipality has to tax harder to do less. You can see more and more of the older communities, not just cities, are sitting on an ice cube that's shrinking as the infrastructure and the power of the state throws infrastructure off into open spaces to build new cities so that people can move away.
If you don't remember anything else I say, please remember this. We can't address redevelopment issues, deteriorating infrastructure, declining tax base, the concentration of poverty, without at the same time addressing the issues that face public education. Many in our community have been working and are working very hard on economic redevelopment. We've formed a CDC and we have a Main Street project underway. but the resources, both for economic redevelopment and for school reform, are not equal to the task that's ahead of us. Given the relationship between the schools and the community, we can't revitalize Wilkinsburg without reforming our schools, and no school reform will work so long as our communities are allowed to continue to decline.
It has been said that if the core of an apple dies, the rest of the apple will start to decay. The same can be said for our older urban areas, such as Columbia, Elizabethtown, Manheim, New Holland, and certainly Lancaster City. Thus, we have sprawl and decline in our older communities. But how can we fix this problem? Columbia Borough has created a Keystone Opportunity Zone, enacted a residential and commercial local economic revitalization tax assistance program. But these are a help, but it is not enough to override the cost of replacing old, inadequate infrastructure.
No other school district has homeless students. My school district has 900 homeless students a year. And when I talk to my surrounding legislators, they say it's a shame you have that problem. Because when somebody became homeless in their district, they left and came to my district. It's our problem.
Our planning area contains every community type from established city to rural township. My take on it is a lot of people are leaping straight from the city into the second-class townships. They're not even stopping in the first-class townships or the boroughs in our case. They're heading out and trying to enjoy a rural quality of life where they are placing a burden on my things of interest, the habitat, the farmland, the forest, the wetlands, the wildlife.
So transportation policy, ladies and gentlemen, isn't about rubber tires and steel wheels. It's about how a student gets from a neighborhood with safe streets to a school that prepares her to collaborate and compete in the global economy. It's how that student's parents find an affordable home with a reasonable commute to a good job that pays the bills. That's our mission statement.
We are making sure that when HUD spends money, when HUD pours millions into communities, when HUD builds low-income, subsidized housing, it's always taking a step toward further integration and not consolidating concentrations of poverty. We're not going to just build where it's easiest to build, but we're going to build in such a way that HUD's national policy is always promoting greater diversity, greater inclusion, greater opportunity for the people who rely on HUD programs.
Turf and the way things have always been done are the two most powerful forces of nature. Therefore, in order for us to move from the usual policy creep of Pennsylvania to genuine policy change, it is necessary to frame and continually, aggressively make a convincing case to everybody. In particular, citizens, and there are a lot of them, who believe that their communities will forever be untouched by fiscal difficulties, blight, or other ills, need to be made aware of their community's systemic exposure to risk, have their beliefs and complacency challenged, and the issues made very personal.
Here's our challenge. A challenge that I see in my own church every day. I see as we come together to do community days in our area or block parties. I see the same challenge of us living together, working together, growing together, going to school together, dealing with all our home problems and all the infrastructure problems together. And that is our challenge as we stand together here to build the one Pennsylvania.
I made the pitch at that last meeting that we needed to pull people together from across our Commonwealth to build support for the kinds of things that we all in this room are interested in accomplishing.
And this is the most important work I have done in my lifetime. And I think it's the most important work you will do in your lifetime, because we cannot afford to forget that whatever happens to us happens because we allow it to happen.
Whether you're liberal or conservative or Democrat or Republican, none of that really matters. What matters is whether you can put together coalitions of like-minded people who want to solve these important problems.
This is about action. This is about us taking these discussions, taking these ideas, and putting them into practice.
But I want to let you know that things can be done, and I hope that today is the start of a process so that we can move forward as a Commonwealth trying to find the solutions to the problems that we face.
We have come together today to begin the work of building a powerful coalition, to join with policy members to create a transformational statewide agenda that recognizes, respects, and addresses the need to revitalize Pennsylvania's valuable older communities, our communities.
You know, there's an old saying that it's not a, there's no Republican way to clean the streets or Democratic way to clean the snow, to get rid of the snow. And I think the same is true for the kinds of problems that confront our state. Pennsylvania has, and this is going to sound harsh, too long been a reform backwater. Too long we have followed too many states and too many communities in making the kinds of fundamental changes that will improve the lives of our citizens. And so the challenge is, you can do it. Do you have the energy and the enthusiasm and the commitment to make the changes that matter?
Martin Luther King Jr., writing from Birmingham jail, said, "We live in inescapable networks of mutuality." Well, we have spent a long time in active disregard for that observation. We have assumed we could be saved by one more shopping mall, one last office park, one less multi-family apartment building. The jig appears to be up. The nation's unmistakable demographic movement toward a non-white majority makes escape from the network impossible, except for the very rich, and undesirable as it relates to our most cherished ideals. We're running out of land and natural resources to run to or to use up. The gating of our communities has only cost us more. We can no longer afford ourselves, and we can't do it alone. We have little choice but to do it together, and I believe we can. Thank you very much.